Ready to go to work?
Yep.
I can't see shit. These glasses. Meeting come to order, please. Thank you. Roll call. Press your present button, please. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Record it. Announcements, staff.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of announcements. First of all, for those of you who have not turned in your training hours, we are still in need of that to put with your records. So please contact Christina when you get an opportunity. Okay. Item 2, with regret, I must announce that Paul Pratt Jr. Tendered his resignation from the Planning Commission this past week. We appreciate his long service to the Planning Commission, and I know you all join with me. Wish him good luck. And finally, we do have a number of withdrawals. Items 8 and 9, which is 8 is Troubadour Section 1 Performance Bond for Wastewater Treatment. 9 is Vineyard Valley Section 1 Maintenance Bond for Water. And items 13 and 14, which are preliminary plat for King's Chapel, Phase 9, and 14, preliminary plat for King's Chapel, Phase 10. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing else for you.
Thank you. Consideration of minutes of November 14, 2019. Any corrections? Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Consideration of the consent agenda. Anyone wishing to pull an item for separate discussion, please say so now or we'll take it as a whole. Anyone? Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with item number 3, Arrington Retreat, Section 4, Maintenance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $348,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 4, Hardeman Springs Wastewater System Area, Performance Bond for Landscaping, $63,850. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 6 months. Item 5, Hardeman Springs Wastewater System Area, Performance Bond for Wastewater Treatment and Disposal System, $165,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 6, Mike Hayes Landscaping, Performance Bond for Landscaping, $2,700. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 7, The Grove, Section 6, Maintenance Bond for Roads, Drainage, and Erosion Control, $300,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. As noted earlier, items 8 and 9 have been withdrawn. Dropping down to item 10, Vulcan Materials, Performance Bond for Landscaping / Revegetation, $63,350. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year.
Thank you, sir. Questions on consent? Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. And item 11, concept plan review for Troubadour Golf and Field Club containing 324 lots on 670.99 acres located off road, I guess, in the 5th voting district.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a revised concept plan which requires a public hearing. There was an error in the public notice for that public hearing, and so staff is recommending that this item be deferred until the January 2020 meeting.
Motion to defer. Motion then seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Then item 12, non-residential site plan review for Nolan Hills Church of Christ on 62.31 acres located off Nolensville Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting approval of an approximately 10,100 square foot church building and the associated parking. The applicant has requested action on this item be deferred until the January 2020 meeting. Staff concurs with this request.
Thank you, sir. Motion to defer. Motion and second, prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda items 13 and 14 are withdrawn. Agenda item 15, final plat review for Stevens Valley, Section 6, containing 77 lots on 23.76 acres in the 9th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A preliminary plat for this section of the development was approved at the February 2019 meeting. The applicant is now requesting final plat approval for Section 6 of the development, which includes 77 lots and approximately 4.3 acres of open space. Roadway improvements associated with this section of the development, as stipulated in the traffic impact study, have been completed in accordance with the approved plan. The report states deferral until the January 2020 meeting. However, staff has received a request from the developer to defer to the February 2020 meeting. Staff recommends deferral to the February 2020 meeting.
Thank you, sir. Food. Motion to defer. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote, and vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 16, final plat review for, Russell Ridge, a large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots on 45.49 acres located off of Russell Road in the 1st voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is approximately 45 acres in size and is located off Russell Road, approximately 3/4 of a mile south of Old Harding Road. The applicant is requesting approval of a large lot easement subdivision in order to create 5 lots off a new 50-foot ingress-egress utilities easement. The site contains natural resources requiring protection, including steep slopes, a ridgetop, and woodlands. A ridgetop runs through along the middle of the site from the north to the south, with steep slopes leading up to it on both sides. The site is also almost entirely under a tree canopy. All zoning ordinance requirements, including those regarding the protection of natural resources, have been met. The applicant is proposing individual septic systems for the lots, and the Williamson County Department of Sewage Disposal Management has approved the request. Water will be provided by Harpeth Valley Utilities District. As no fire hydrants are proposed, and as none are currently located within 500 feet of the building envelopes have been separated by 200 feet. The plat is in order, and staff recommends approval subject to the following. 1, a notice of coverage issued by TDEC will be required prior to the signing of the plat. Number 2, a land disturbance permit must be obtained for the overall development. And number 3, driveway and drainage infrastructure must be complete, consistent with zoning ordinance requirements prior to issuance of building permits.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Anyone? Comments? Motion? Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 17, proposed amendments to the Planning Commission bylaws. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a result of recent litigation involving the Planning Commission, I have reviewed the Planning Commission bylaws and am recommending amendments which will provide clarification within several sections. Specifically, the voting procedure is clarified in relation to the effect of a recusal and an abstention, and in calculating a majority vote. Amendments are also proposed confirming the obligation on the part of the Planning Commission to deliberate until a majority vote is reached on any action involving a subdivision plat or site or concept plan, and to make findings of fact and statements of material evidence supporting each action. Correction was made to references to the Tennessee Code annotated. Amendment is also proposed to the public hearing procedure so that it is very clearly and unequivocally stated who may address the Planning Commission during a meeting and when that may or may not occur in the order of business. The deadline within which the public may provide written materials for the Planning Commission to consider has been moved back one day, so that written materials must now be received by noon on Monday before the Thursday Planning Commission meeting in order for the materials to be made a part of the record. This will give staff and other consultants more of an opportunity to review and respond to any matters that are addressed in those written materials prior to the Planning Commission meeting. Finally, there are some general cleanup items and typographical errors addressed. All of these changes are shown in track changes format on attachment 17-1. With due notice having been given to the members of the Planning Commission of these proposed amendments, planning staff and I recommend adoption of the amendments as presented, and for those amendments to be effective immediately upon adoption.
Thank you, ma'am. I've read this 2 or 3 times, I guess, since a lot of this falls on me. Counselor, would you explain so that we all understand the difference between a recusal and an abstention, please?
Yes, I will. So in the bylaws, it specifies how many people have to be here in order for there to be a quorum, okay? And when you have a quorum, the number of people that are here, either at that quorum or above, a majority of that is what you have to have in order for any item to be approved, whether a motion to approve or deny. When someone recuses, that's when there is a conflict or an appearance of conflict, and I have always asked you all to physically get up and leave the room while we deliberate on that item. That person recusing is no longer participating and eligible to vote. So for instance, if we had 8 people here and someone recused, now you only have 7 people present and voting, so you need a majority of the 7 rather than a majority of the 8, okay? An abstention is where someone stays and deliberates but chooses to literally abstain in their vote rather than vote for or against the motion. So you're participating, you're not recusing because of a conflict or whatever. And so you, for instance, would have 8 people, and when all 8 of you vote, one person abstains. That's not a vote in favor of the motion, so it has the effect of a vote against it just because it's not going to be in favor in a majority count. But you're still part of the count in determining the action. So because you're still present and voting, you're just choosing not to take a position on the motion by abstaining rather than voting for or against.
But it is a no.
It has the effect of a no, essentially.
Thank you. Clear? Want to make sure everybody understands that, because a recusal can cause problems with our meeting if we've got 6, 7 here, for example. Did you have others you wanted to discuss in any detail?
Just mainly it's everything, to remind you all that everything that was challenged in the lawsuit, the court confirmed what we did. So I'm not doing this because we did anything wrong. I'm doing this so that, like I said in the report, it's abundantly clear to everyone else what our rules are, how the vote is supposed to be counted, and then also just to include the obligation in the bylaws that the state statute already says, that you all have to deliberate until you can take an action one way or the other, and that tie votes, they are just not possible to retain a tie vote if it's on a plat or a plan because of that potential for automatic approval. Everything that I've been telling you in the meeting, I've just tried to codify in the bylaws as well.
On a tie, we have to continue.
A tie vote is essentially a no vote of the action. It's not an approval one way or the other.
So we could be ordering breakfast?
If y'all don't step up and have a majority vote on something. And that's the main thing. It's so that the chairman and I are not browbeating you all to take an action, this action or that action. There just has to be an action of a majority of those voting. So.
Clear? I don't see any heads nodding.
Brian has some questions.
Brian?
Just one question about an abstention and why it's a no and not a tie, where it would be a half a yes and a half a no.
Because you have to have votes in favor of the motion, and so if it's not in favor of the motion, it's basically a non-action. You're there and you're participating and you're counted in the number of people required to reach a majority, but you're not contributing to the action, either for or against.
So the commissioner is essentially saying no without saying no.
Essentially, just as a
That's
practical
what I wanted
matter.
to make sure everybody, one of the things I wanted to make sure you understood. Anything else?
Not for me, unless there are any questions.
Boy, you understand it though, and let's talk to us. Any others that were complicated, Christie, that you recall?
Not really. The main thing was also clarifying participation in your meeting. As you all know, we've had some issues with that in the past. And so I clarified in there, it's always been the applicant's obligation and opportunity to provide information to you all. And so I just made that, again, abundantly clear that there is procedure for those in the public participating when it's a public hearing, and then you have the applicant who's actually the master of their application. And so they or their representative can participate in the meeting regardless of whether it's a public hearing action or not. And then we also just made it clear that if someone was choosing to disrupt the meeting outside of the bounds of the order of business, the chairman can ask them to leave and they'll be required to remove themselves from the meeting.
Or I can shoot at them.
No, that's not in there. And never will be. Don't say that.
Being facetious.
I know.
That is something we haven't really had a definition of. People who yell out whatever from the back row and won't sit down and be quiet. You can now ask them to leave, and we have the authority to do that, so.
Are you going to escort them out?
Nope. It is at the discretion of the chairman. Got lots of discretions. I put a bunch in there. Anything? Don?
Just clear it up for me, if we don't make a decision on anything that's before us,
You mean in a tie
if
or a failure to get a second?
failure to make a decision on any one in front of us. In the past, we've said if you don't make a decision within a certain period of time, it's an automatic yes.
Yes.
Is that within 60 days, it's automatic yes, or?
Yes. It's a state statute that's been incorporated into the subregs and the zoning ordinance, and now your bylaws essentially, that says if you don't take an action after your first consideration of the item within 60 days, then it's considered automatically approved if it's a plat or a plan.
Wait a minute. You said we had to continue till we got an action.
Yeah, because if you don't, and 60 days happen later, then it's automatically
Wait a minute,
approved regardless
You
of what you
said we had
said.
to do that.
Because I'm going to make you do that, because you also have the obligation, according to state statute, to make findings of fact and present material evidence to support what you do.
Right.
If you hear this one time and it sits on the planning director's desk for 60 days and you never take an action on it, it's automatically approved.
Is that-
But you also have an opportunity to defer an item, and that's an action, right, that can be taken if you need more information in order to.
You mean if I got a tie?
that right?
and it-
Not beyond 60 days, no.
No, no,
If
no.
it's after 60
can defer
days,
for-
then the applicant has to agree to that deferral.
Right.
But you can defer at one time generally,
Question from the
calendar-wise.
chair. If I have a tie and I can't get out of it, and it's going on 3 o'clock in the morning, can we get a motion to defer for 30 days and move on?
If it's not going to put that beyond the 60.
Well, I said 30.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're in your second consideration of, you can defer it once, but it's tricky whether you can defer it twice.
Oh.
Because of the calendar. Yeah,
So that first time you could.
absolutely.
Good.
And also, John, the applicant can choose to defer it, particularly if it looks
Sure.
like it's heading that way.
That's
But
always
that-
an option. Any other questions or comments, thoughts? Everybody read it, got it memorized? There'll be a quiz next meeting. Anyone? We'll call it a night. Motion to defer?
What?
I got her then.
I need you all to actually adopt these if
To
you want.
adjourn,
please.
Beth.
we gotta vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, we hadn't voted. Oh. Prepare to vote.
Was there a second? Okay,
Yes,
just making
there
sure.
was.
Y'all are freaking me out. Stop it.
Vote now. We like to keep council on edge.
Gracious.
Beth, pound it. Thank you. Record it. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys.